this schematic diagram right here, okay, we have a three-way switch or a single pole double throw switch and another one just like it, right, hooked up in series, controlling light B. And the second run in parallel, we have a single pole single throw switch controlling light A and a receptacle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this drawing right here, and we're going to try to figure out how to transfer it up into a single line diagram. So single line diagram, if you remember from first year, the purpose of it is for wire count, right? So what we have here is our panel. We have a raceway going to a box with a single pole double throw switch in, so one of the three ways. We have another raceway going to a junction box where light B is hooked up. Raceway going to another box where the second three-way switch is hooked up. We have another raceway going to another box where a single pole single throw switch is hooked up, and then going to your light A, and then down to your receptacle. So all these components here are what we have in this schematic diagram. So what we need to do is take these wires here and transfer it up to this single line diagram and try to figure out how many conductors we're going to have in each raceway. Okay, so just a little recap. Small lines, so here's my raceway. Small lines can be hots, switch legs, or travelers, and travelers always travel in pairs, right? So you always have to have two of them. And identifieds are going to be drastically bigger, right? So we can identify the identified in a raceway, because you're not necessarily going to have these labels here. You're just going to have these little ticks on a line, and you got to figure out, okay, I got 4 conductors here. Oh, and there's a big one. I got 1 identified. Okay, so going through your schematic, you can go through and identify what conductors are called what. So this conductor coming to my first three-way switch is going to be called my hot conductor, right? My three-way switch to three-way switch, these are called my travelers. Second way three-way switch going to my load is going to be my switch leg. I'm going to call it switch leg B because we're going to have multiples, right? And then B, my load going back to my source, is called my identified. All right? And then going down to this guy here, feeding my single pole single throw switch is a hot. The switch feeding my light and my receptacle is called a switch leg. So I'll call it switch leg A. That's an S there. Right? So when it branches off here, it's the same thing. It's switch leg A, and this one also is switch leg A. It's all the same point electrically. Right? And then my A light going back to my source is my identified, and my receptacle going back to my source is my identified. So what you need to do is take these wires here, and you're going to transfer them back up to this drawing here. So we have from my panel, okay, we have my hot coming out of my panel and an identified. Okay, we have the hot feeding into my first three-way switch, and then the three-way switches hooked together with travelers. So we'll put that in. So I have a hot feeding into a three-way switch already, right? It's coming down, feeding into here, right? This three-way switch has to hook up to this three-way switch with travelers. But in order to do that, I have to go through this junction box here. Right? So we're going to have 2 travelers coming out, going straight through, and going to this three-way switch here. Right? And that's those conductors right here. This three-way switch, the second one, I have switch leg B coming out to my light B, and then an identified going back to my source. So my second three-way switch going to light B, I'm going to have switch leg B coming out, going to my light, and then my light has an identified traveling back up to the source, my panel. Right, so I have an identified coming back to here. I already have an identified in this raceway here, so I don't need to add another one. Perfect. So that's the first line. We did that one. Okay, second one, I have a hot conductor coming to my single pole single throw switch, and then my switch feeding switch leg A to light A and my receptacle. So I have a hot, I'm going to be feeding this switch here. So I have a hot already coming down to switch leg, or sorry, to switch 3. I need to have it also coming down all the way through and feeding switch 1 here. Oops, that's going to be hot. All right, and then switch 1 is feeding switch leg A to light A and to the receptacle. So I'm going to have switch leg A going to light A, and also switch leg A going to my receptacle. Okay. Then from A and my receptacle, I have an identified traveling back to my source. So I need to have my identified coming back here. Okay, going back up, so I need to have one here. Okay, so I have an identified coming into my light, and my receptacle needs to come back through here, so I need an identified here, traveling back up. I have an ID here already, and an ID here coming back to my source, so I don't need to add another one. Okay, so that is your schematic diagram complete. But one thing you need to learn, or know, is for the new code this year, is that you have to have an identified conductor going to every light that's controlling, or sorry, every switch is controlling lights. Okay, so all of our switches here are controlling lights, which means I have to have an identified present in that box available if I want to put in like a smart switch or something. Okay, that's going to actually use a designated current. So I already have an identified in here. That's the identified traveling through. It's already located in there. I have an identified located in here already because it's traveling through. But here, I don't have an identified available for this switch. So I need to tap off in here and bring an identified into this switch here. So I just put an identified there. All right. Then you can say, okay, there's 4 in this guy. There's 4, 2, 2, 2, and 2. All right, so that's the single line diagram, conversion from a schematic diagram. You're going to be doing a lot of this in second year, so try to brush up on it. You can watch this video again and try to do it for yourself, pause it or something. But please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask away. Thanks for watching.